What's up, witches? Surprise. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. What's up, what's up? How we doing, how we doing? What's going on? Who's up? You know, I have these witching hours. Oh, it's 11:11. Hey, it's 11:11. I have these witching hours, you know, us self-employed baddies make our own hours. So I'm sure a bunch of you have to work in the morning and won't be able to jump on right now. But for those of you who are able to jump on, check it out. Can you see this? I'm doing my nails. Do my nails, and I figured I would hang out with you guys while I do that. Because I don't have high tea tonight. I don't have Witches of Color meeting tonight. Book club was earlier. I don't have any appointments. So tomorrow is my moon day. I do my very best, despite my crazy, crazy schedule, to give myself Mondays for myself. It is the one day of the week that I do my best to decompress. Hey, Lauren Berg, welcome. How you doing, darling? I do my best on Mondays to decompress, to take that day fully for myself. I have my routine for my Mondays. I get up and I reset my ancestor altars, say my prayers. I sit with them. Sometimes I pull cards. I have last Monday's cards still laid out over on that table because I'm still like digesting the message. I'll journal, I'll do various things. And then when I'm done with that, I will order my groceries. I started ordering my groceries because that turns out to be an incredible act of like self-love for myself. I don't drive and I live in the Bronx. And if you don't know anything about the Bronx, it's a very hilly borough, like lots of very dramatic hills. And usually, like back in the day when I would go grocery shopping, it would be like a whole 3 hour, 4 hour process. And it would involve me like pushing shopping carts up hills, you know, shopping carts full of like hundreds of pounds worth of groceries. And COVID happened, and we tried out Instacart for the first time, and it was a successful operation. And I was like, I got to do this all the time now. Like, you know, if I end up moving and living somewhere closer to a supermarket, then I won't do that. But to save myself like 4 hours on my one day, you know, to myself is huge. So I order groceries from Instacart. I order gallons of spring water because my plant babies only get the good stuff. I'm actually not, it's not that I want to spoil my plants. It's that New York's water has so many chemicals in it. So if you've never been to New York has a reputation of having really good water. But the reason why we have really good water is because there is so much chlorine and so much like stuff in it to eradicate the bacteria or anything else in it. And that ends up making it really good to drink because it tastes really fresh, but it is terrible for my plants. Sorry, there's fireworks. I live in the hood. There's fireworks going on. So yeah, so my plants cannot handle it. So I give them spring water. And so I get my spring water, I get my groceries, I water my plants, which can sometimes take like an hour. Hi, Takara. And then I usually do some type of self-care. I think tomorrow I'm going to wash my hair. So tonight I'm getting the nails out of the way. And the thing about what's going on with my nails right now is I Okay, so I usually use gel dip powders. These are from Peppy Gel. Another COVID find when going to the salon was no longer an option. I learned to do my own nails with gel dip powder, and I really love them. It has been completely quiet, by the way, up until now. These motherfuckers want to start at 11:15 with the fucking World War III. Anyway, anyway, so I taught myself how to do my own nails with the gel dip powder, and I love it. It lasts forever. Really good on the nails, all of that good stuff. But here's the deal. Usually, why is that even necessary? Usually, my nails are longer than this. They're like so short right now. Usually, they're longer than this, but I waited really long to take my last set off. And instead of soaking them off in acetone the way I normally do, like a good girl, I they were starting to just come off. So I just was like sitting. I think I was live while I was doing this, but I was just sitting during like, oh, I think it was Witches of Color support group. I was just sitting and I just started peeling them off. So that did damage to my nails. A bunch of them broke and now they're really, really short. So I think instead of doing my dip polish, I got all ready for my dip. I think I'm going to try something that James Devine gave me. So shout out to James Devine, aka Divine Hand Gym. He was just live in my shop's online portal teaching a class on palmistry, which if you took that class, drop a comment about what you thought about it because the reviews are out of this world. I thought it was a phenomenal class. It was amazing. I loved every bit of it. Definitely way more than I expected. So shout out to Jim for the amazing class. But when he was in New York earlier this summer, I met up with him and Madame Pamita at the Readers Studio Tarot Conference, and he gave me a pack of press-on nails because him and Madame Pamita were wearing matching press-on nails because they're fabulous. And he was like, "Oh, you got to try these press-on nails. I brought a bunch. You can have a pack." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I kind of do my gel thing, but like I'll take them, and maybe I'll use them." And I haven't wanted to use them because they're like short square shape, and I haven't wanted to cut my nails in order to put the press-ons on. Like that doesn't make sense. But now that my nails are all short and stubby, they're perfect for the press-ons. So I should try the press-ons, right? I think that's what we're gonna do. Put these away. And let's try these press-ons, shall we? I have no idea how long they're going to last, but that's okay because I do my nails every like 3 weeks to a month anyway. So we'll see how they go and see how long they last, and then it is what it is. Wasn't it phenomenal? It is incredible. If you guys do not know this about me, if you're new around here, I am Allie, aka BronxWitch. I'm the CEO and founder of BronxWitch HeadQuarters, which is the Bronx's only metaphysical bookstore and workshare space. We are the hub for all things witchy in the Bronx, New York City, and the world at large, if you ask me. And we have an online portal with dozens of classes, many of them taught by me, but some of them taught by some of my fantastic, fabulous guest instructor witch friends, like Madame Pamita and Divine Hand Jim and Maria Minnis, the author of Tarot for the Hard Work, and Melissa Madara, just like all of these really cool people and more on the way. A bunch of classes from our former shop witches, classes on herbalism, classes on crystal healing. So there are lots of classes. If you click the description box, there's probably a link that says like learn from me or something like that. And that'll take you into the class portal where all of my classes live forever. And you can take them at your own pace, all that good stuff. And the palm reading class is in there as well. The palm reading class is free right now, but it is going to be charged starting August 1st. So we decided to make it free for the first month so that people can be introduced to Jim, get to know him, learn about palmistry. But after August 1st, that class is going to be $50. So go enroll in the portal and download the class now, because even if you don't take it now, it's yours in your student dashboard forever. But that way you get it for free and you can take it whenever you want, because after August 1st, it's going to be $50. So take it now. It is amazing. Yeah. We learned a lot of great stuff in that class. I thought it was phenomenal. So that's Jim, who is wonderful. And he gave me these press-on nails at the tarot conference, and I haven't tried them yet. So I think now is the time to give them a try. I was going to go with a dark color anyway, and these are a dark color. So this is kind of perfect to try. They're like a beautiful iridescent dark purpley color. And he said that the one tip that he would give me is that you should put on a coat of clear first, because like the glue underneath creates kind of like a moist environment that he said sort of damaged his real nails a little bit. But other than that they were like really convenient. So we're gonna see how this goes. I don't know how smart this is to put these on right now, because I am gonna wash my hair tomorrow. So we'll see. But this will be the real test. If they can stand up to that, then that'll be pretty incredible. So we'll see. I feel very doubtful, because I remember the press-on nails of my youth, and those bad boys last like a day. But he swears up and down that press-on nails have gone through a revolution. They are not what they used to be. They are really phenomenal now, and they will last you a really long time. So we'll see. Where's the glue? Oh, do they really just stick on? There is no way this is going to work. Okay, we'll try it. We shall try it. But anyhow, say hi when you come in the building. Say what's up. Don't just be lurking. Lurkies. Say what's up. And I figured while I did this, I would also give you guys a little bit of a recap about Black Herman. Because I just posted on my Instagram a little video about my recent journeys to find his home. Because in his grimoire, for those of you who have it, you know this already probably, but in his grimoire, it starts off with like the story of his life, which we are pretty sure is perhaps a bit of an exaggeration. But either way, it is a fascinating and phenomenal story. And in it, he talks about, of course, his journey to Harlem. He was born in the South, he was born in Virginia, but being a legendary performer, traveling all over the country, his travels brought him to New York, where he settled in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance, and was rubbing elbows with like the big names of the Harlem Renaissance. He was really close slash also kind of like antagonistic towards Marcus Garvey, and like Duke Ellington, and like all of the Harlem Renaissance folks. And his home was located, according to the book, at 119 West 136th Street, which was like very close to Marcus Garvey's theater that he was routinely selling out. And when I went online to find it, there was a huge tree in the Google Maps, making it impossible for me to see if the house was still there. I could literally see the building to the left, 117, and I could see the building to the right, 121, but could not see 119. Which is like, Spirit is hilarious. They definitely wanted me to go and find this. So I posted about it on my Instagram, and I had a couple of folks comment about like, you know, asking me about his grave site. Did I know where his grave site was and things like that? And I was like, you guys, like, his grave site is how this whole saga got started back in March of this year. So I have gone live several times and talked about Black Herman on this channel. I've done so also on the BronxWitch HQ, the shop YouTube, and the shop Instagram, because we, of course, have his candles and prayer cards and his grimoire in the shop available for folks. So I feel like I have like gone live all over the place talking about it, but you know, the socials can be so funny where it's like they do such a terrible job of notifying your followers of like your new stuff or the things that you have going on. So it's really just a complete gamble of whether or not people see what you post. And I try to remind folks to like turn on their notifications and all of that stuff. But you know, life be lifing. And so people, you think that like people are watching what you got going on, and a lot of times like nobody freaking knows. So I just wanted to come on and recap the story for those of you who maybe have only heard the end of it, like the most recent pieces of it, or maybe you have no idea what's going on with Black Herman. Maybe you're new here. So I wanted to give you guys like a rundown of everything that's happened since March and let you know where we are right now with everything, because we are on a mission to venerate his spirit and really kind of formalize him as a folk saint of hoodoo practitioners of the Northeast and of New York, Harlem, and the Bronx in particular. And I want as many of you as possible to be a part of this, because we're really making like hoodoo history. And I want you all to be able, you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you're telling your grandkids about all of your witchy adventures, I want you to be able to tell them that you were a part of elevating a spirit to the level of folk saint. It's pretty cool. So before I get into a recap of the story, I will also share with you that the online portal where all of my classes are also has something called the Coven Community, which you can kind of think of as the cafeteria on campus. It's a place where all of the students can come together and hang out and talk. There's a discussion feed. Yes, there's a discussion feed separated into several different spaces with like different topics. There are exclusive virtual live streams that are just for Coven, which is like my high tea lives and Alexis's Moonlit Metaphysics, the book club, stuff like that. And the discussion feed has a Black Herman subsection that is specifically dedicated to talking about Black Herman. So folks that have gotten his candle, gotten his grimoire, or learning more about him, maybe have petitioned him for things in their lives already, can talk about their stories. So if you do have a genuine interest in Black Herman and want to be a part of a community that is, you know, venerating him, then consider joining the Coven, because that's where people are sharing their spells, sharing their petitions, and we're all just kind of keeping each other posted on the progress of how everything is going, because we have a beautiful collection of history of his living life. But now I want to build a collection of stories of what he's done for us as a spirit, which would be pretty cool. Hey. Tavadia Pundamavala Ena Pandra. I may have just cursed someone. The smiley emojis made me feel good about it. Welcome. So definitely consider joining the Coven if you want to like really be abreast of not just my experience with Black Herman, but all the other witches that are also petitioning him and stuff. That's a good place to do it. But I will recap you guys on my experience so far, because it's wild, it's crazy. And for the witches in the Bronx witch world, I'm kind of the reason why all of this is happening. I am not the only practitioner that is a part of this journey. And I wouldn't even know about him if it wasn't for my hoodoo teacher reaching out. But in BronxWitch world, I'm the reason why we are on this path together. So I'll tell you guys my story. So back in March, I think it was early March or late February, one of my hoodoo teachers Brother Moses Shanasi of the Holy Mountain Spiritualist Temple in Colorado reached out to me with the picture of a document that had Black Herman's legal name, the date of his internment, the name of the cemetery, and like the number of the lot and the plot where he was buried. And Brother Moses had tagged this, like posted this document on his stories and tagged me. So I woke up to this tag that said, you know, we have located Black Herman's grave, we believe, but I need somebody in the Bronx to go find it because apparently he's buried in the Bronx. BronxWitch, like, would you be up for the task? You think you have to ask me twice to go creeping around in the graveyard to go get some dirt from a powerful hoodoo man? Are you kidding? So I was like, yes, I will do this. Give me the deets, like, let me know. So he sent me the document, and he also sent me some offerings to give to the grave. And different traditions have different ideas of what a proper offering is when going to obtain something from someone's grave site. But mercury dimes are pretty popular amongst hoodoo practitioners. Mercury dimes are genuine silver dimes, which, if you know anything about currency, you know that there's no real silver in dimes anymore. There's like no real copper in pennies anymore, I don't think. So mercury dimes, though, are much older and they have actual silver in them. They also have the symbol of the god Mercury on it. And Mercury is, the planet Mercury is considered the planet of communication. So giving a mercury dime as payment to a spirit that you are trying to petition, or whose, you know, items you are going to retrieve from their gravesite, is customary because it not only is a coin of value, but it is also a coin of, or a talisman, if you will, of communication. So he sends me some consecrated mercury dimes and was like, here you go. Here's the proper offering for this. Can you go get it? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, can you also make sure to obtain some dirt from the crossroads within the cemetery as well? We need the dirt of the person we are petitioning, but we also need crossroads dirt. No problem. So I take a look at the cemetery, and it is enormous. It is 400 acres large, thousands of graves. And I was like, yeah, I cannot just show up there without an idea of where this is, because like that's just not going to happen. I will be there all day. So I call the cemetery like information office, and I'm like, hey, I have this information. Like, would you be able to tell me where this lot is? And they're like, yeah, no problem. When you get here, just come to the office and we will print out a map for you. And that will show you exactly where all of the plots are and you'll be able to find it. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go and I get there. I took a cab. Alexis was watching the shop. So she's like watching all of this unfold. And when I called, I lied. I lied about who I was because I did not think that it would go over well if I was like, hey, I'm just some random stranger trying to find this grave because, you know, I'm a witch and I plan on doing like some weird shit there. And I'm sure I am not the first witch to creep up in the graveyard. So I am sure that they probably are hesitant to give any information to witches because they know that I'm coming to like dig up their beautiful, pristine, you know, grave sites. So I decided to lie. May God forgive me. And I was like, yeah, so, my family found some documents and we think my like long lost uncle is like buried at your cemetery. Could you help me locate him? Blah, blah, blah. I gave the person his name. They didn't recognize it. And they looked it up and they were like, oh, yeah, he's here. I can confirm he's here, and we can give you a map to find the exact spot when you get here. Just go to the office and ask for so and so. And I was like, okay, cool. So I take a cab, I head up there. I've got like Ziploc bags and like a tiny little shovel in my backpack along with my offerings. And I stop at the office, and the office that I stopped at turned out to be a different office than what I had called, because the cemetery is so huge that they have an office at each entrance. So I walk in and it's a different lady. And I'm like, hey, I was on the phone with so and so. She said that I could get a map. Can you show me how to get to that office? And the woman I'm speaking to was like, oh, you don't have to do that. Like, I can print out the map she was going to print out for you. Just tell me the name of the person. So I tell her the name and she goes, you're looking for Black Herman? I gave her his legal name. And she goes, Black Herman? You're looking for Black Herman? And I was like, oh shit, she knows who I'm looking for. And I was like, yes, I am looking for Black Herman. She goes, oh my God, yeah. There's a lot of famous people buried in the cemetery. She's like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, what, how do you know him? Or like, why are you on this? Why are you trying to find him? So I continue on with my stupid lie. And I'm like, well, he's like my long lost uncle. Or my family found these, I forget what I said. My family found these documents like in the attic or whatever, blah, 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 trying to make it make sense. Because now I'm realizing like, oh shit, like they know who this person is. So like they might know whether or not he has like grand family or something like that. I might totally get caught here. And one of the ladies was looking at me kind of side eye, like she wasn't really buying my story. But the other lady was so excited that I knew who Black Herman was, that she was kind of like not putting together the fact that my story wasn't really lining up, thankfully. She was like, yes, there was a gentleman here like a year ago that was working on a documentary. I don't think it ever got made. And now I'm wondering if that was another witch that was just lying as well. But she claimed that there was some guy that said he was working on a documentary and had come to do some research. So anyway, so she gives me this map and she's like, oh, it's a really good thing you came to get the map because his grave is unmarked. We're talking about thousands of graves. His grave is unmarked. So there's no way you would have found it without like the map of the lots. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. So she's like, oh, do you want us to take you? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I need privacy. So I start walking, following the map. It's not too far from the office. It's like a 10-minute walk. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. This looks doable. So I start on my little walk. I'm looking at the grave sites. I'm taking video. Cemeteries to me are really peaceful, super beautiful. This one in particular is a very famous cemetery. So, and lots of famous people are in it. So it's very well maintained. It's beautiful. There's tons of mausoleums because, there's lots of people in there with the money for mausoleums. So there's lots of mausoleums and really beautiful headstones and statues and stuff that have been put in by families. And, it's just really nice. So I'm taking my time. I'm taking in the sights. And I start walking down a certain path, and something tells me to go to the path on my left, which is weird because on the map, the grave is to my right. But I've been doing this for long enough to know that you listen. You just listen. So I listened to that voice that said, go to the left. And as I'm walking, I suddenly reach like an open clearing space. And there's this statue that was once, I guess, copper, because now it's all like, how it turns blue-green. This blue-green statue of a very large man just standing like this. and he's just looking at me. And it's not an angry face. It's not a scary face. And the energy wasn't ominous. It was just enough to get my attention. I'm looking down at my map. I'm trying to like read the little street signs. There's like little street signs to make sure that I'm on the right path. And then all of a sudden I just go like this. I just feel somebody looking at me. And I look over and there's this statue, it's probably like 7.5, 8 feet tall. And this big imposing man, and he's just looking down at me in this clearing. And I said, hello. I just felt like I was supposed to greet him and say hello. And so I stopped for a moment and I just said, hello. Like, thank you for keeping an eye out. You seem to be keeping an eye out here. Thank you for keeping an eye out. And then I turn to my right and I see the name of the street sign I'm looking for. Oh, okay, here we go. So I turn to the right and I walk straight down this road, and right in front of me is the lot that he's buried in. And I get right to the lot, and there's a tree in the distance, and there's this slab of cement on the ground amongst all of these other headstones. It was like I was drawn right to it. I just walked right smack into it, and I was like, I think this is it. But there's nothing on it to confirm. So luckily, the people in the office had been nice enough to tell me the names of the people around the grave. So the woman was like, okay, you're going to want to look for this name and this name and this name. And if you see these names, then you're in the right space. So I'm looking for the names to confirm that I'm in the right space. And at first I started to doubt myself, because I was like, what are the chances that I like really walk right up on this grave and it's exactly the grave? Like, what are the chances that happens? So I start to doubt myself, and I start looking around at the other graves, and I'm not seeing anything unmarked. I'm not seeing any other names, but I'm also not seeing the names of the people they told me to look for. So that's what made me kind of like hesitant. So first I walked to the left and I'm looking around and I'm seeing nothing. And then I decide to look to the right and come back the way I had come past that tree. And the graveyard had been completely quiet this entire time. Really silent, really quiet. Just saw some squirrels running around. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear a bird, like a woodpecker type bird, knock on the tree. It goes just as I'm about to walk past it. And I was like, okay, that caught my attention. Hadn't heard anything like that. All right. I kind of take a step back for a second, and I'm standing right over that slab at this point that I originally thought was the grave. And I go to walk past the tree another time, and I hear this time louder. And I'm like, okay. I get the message this time. This bird seems to be trying to get my attention every time I try to go past this tree. And I look down and I realize I'm standing right at that slab again. So then I go in front of the slab and I look at the names of the headstones there, and it's the names that the office told me to look for. So that slab that I walked right up to, the very first moment that I got to the lot, was the correct gravestone. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Also, thank you, bird, for making sure I didn't walk past it and go too far in the wrong direction. So I'm like, all right, I'm good. I sit down, I open up my backpack, I'm looking around, making sure there's no like groundskeepers coming around. Take out my offerings and I begin to pray. And I'm doing my usual prayers, asking Black Herman to come forward, letting him know why I'm there, letting him know I'm on a mission, letting him know who I'm on the mission for. And I take out my little shovel. I dig into one corner of the grave, get enough dirt to send back to my hoodoo teacher and a little extra for me. And I drop into the hole my Mercury dime offerings, and then I cover it back up. And then it's time to go to part 2 of my mission. Part 2 of my mission is to get dirt from the crossroads. And before I pull out my map, I said to myself, wait a minute. How much you want to bet that clearing that I walked through was the crossroads? Because that spirit and that statue was a crossroads spirit. That was the guardian. That was why I got drawn over to the left. I had to go say hello and greet the crossroads spirit first. And then I would get permission to go to the grave. How much you want to bet? I pull out the map and I'm like, okay, I need to find the closest crossroads to right here. And why is it smack right there? I didn't realize when I walked through the clearing that I had walked through a crossroads. Everything opened up. I see this big statue. It kind of takes me by surprise. And before I can realize that I'm standing in the middle of 4 connecting roads, I see the name of the road I need to be on. And I just kept going on my way. So I was like, I know that must have been the crossroads. I pull out my map and sure enough, that's what it was. I was like, wow, okay. All right, Mr. Crossroads Spirit, I'm coming back. Here I come. So I go back the way that I came to the crossroad and I go up to the statue and I sit at the base of the statue and I'm kind of talking to him about why I'm there and asking him to direct me. First of all, to give me the okay, but then to direct me from where in the crossroads I should take this dirt. And my first thought was I should take a little bit from all 4 corners because that's kind of customary. Four corners dirt is what it's called when you take it from 4 corners of an intersection or a crossroads. So that's what I was going to do. But instead, he had me pay attention to this big tree. All 4 or 3 out of the 4 of the crossroad corners had a mausoleum on it, a little stone house of somebody's tomb. This was the only corner that didn't have a mausoleum. Instead, it had a big tree. And I can't remember what type of tree it was. I feel like maybe I wrote it down in my notes when I got home. But if I didn't pay attention to what type of tree it was, that was kind of dumb on me. But I'm wondering if it was an ash tree. And it will make sense later why I think maybe it was an ash tree. But it was very large. And there was also a very large tree at Black Herman's grave. And as I paid attention to this tree, I realized that the crossroads statue, the way it was facing, it was looking directly at Black Herman's grave and this other tree. So it was the statue, then a tree, then the grave, then another tree. And they were all in a straight line. And I was like, okay, I get it. This is the point of the crossroads that the crossroads spirit is looking at on its way to looking at Black Herman. I need to take it from this corner. So I take some dirt from that corner in a different Ziploc bag, enough for my teacher and a little for me. And I go back out of the crossroads up a different road than I had come. And I'm walking towards the office that I had come from. And I see a black or a white car, like a white van. And it slows down and it's like, hey, I just locked the gate. And it's cemetery, like groundskeepers. And they're like, I just locked the gate. And I was like, oh my God, really? It was 4:30. I didn't realize that the cemetery closed at 4:30. I was like, oh my God, really? I was like, oh, I need to get out. He was like, oh, okay. Hold on, let me back up. I'll let you out. If I had taken just 30 more seconds at the crossroads, just 30 more seconds at Black Herman's grave, I would have been freaking locked in the motherfucking cemetery. Which would have been not cute. But nope, they got me out right on time. I was able to get out. I thought about taking the train home, but And the train was right there at the entrance, but I don't know. I just wanted to like be by myself. So I call in Uber. Uber shows up, and the driver is like a young Latino man. I think he was Dominican. And I was expecting him to be listening to, like, Spanish music. I get into his car and he's listening to like gospel, like old timey Christian gospel. Very weird, and felt very much like a sign from Black Herman that like all was well and that he was coming back with me. So I get back home, I put the dirt on my altars, I separate out enough for myself. And then the next day, I packed up what needed to go back to my hoodoo teacher and shipped it off to Colorado. It arrives to him safely a few days later. And what I found out later, at the time that he asked me to do this, I didn't know that other practitioners would be involved in this process. I thought it was just him, you know? I know it was so funny too, because it was like modernized gospel. Like I could tell it was modern music. Like it wasn't like he was listening to like an old recording. It was modern music, but I could tell that the song was really old. And I felt like something was just like, this is a song Black Herman would have known. It just felt like that. Like it was a song he would have known. So I ride back listening to this classic gospel. It's just starting to rain. It's just like the sky suddenly got gray. It was like this moody moment comes over, and I'm just like, just in the moment. But yeah, so I send the dirt off the next day, and I did not know that another practitioner was involved in this. The other practitioner is Brother Moses's homie and another one of my hoodoo teachers. The reason why they're both my hoodoo teachers is because they collaborated together to do something called Hoodoo Academy, which was like a 8-week intensive hoodoo program that I took with them, and several other people. And so they like co-taught it. So that's why they're both my teachers. So, but they're also friends. And Doc Cosmic lives in Columbia, South Carolina. So what I didn't know until later was that after the dirt got to Brother Moses then sent it to Doc Cosmic in South Carolina. And Doc Cosmic is a lifelong hoodoo practitioner, comes from a family of hoodoo practitioners, is also a minister, but is very much a bloodline hoodoo practitioner. Not a lot of those around. So very grateful and blessed to have been able to learn from him and continue to learn from him. But so the dirt gets sent down to him, and Doc Cosmic has many specialties and skills, but one of them in particular is powder making and conjuring spirits, like calling forward the spirits of the dead and other spirits to communicate with them. And so he takes the dirt, blends it with some other potent ingredients like black cat bone, and turns it into a conjuration powder. He uses that powder to conjure the spirit of Black Herman to ask him some questions. Now, in the meantime, while all of this is going on, I had shared some of this story with you guys in a live. And when I told you guys that Black Herman was in an unmarked grave, the response was like, oh no, that does not seem right. And I agreed. I was like, that doesn't seem right at all. Like, it's not fitting of his legacy. And I won't tell his whole story, but basically you need to know this man if you have any interest in magic of the 20th century, African American history, hoodoo history, the history of magicians. If you're into Houdini, David Copperfield, illusionists and magicians, then you should know Black Herman. And so I'm telling the story, and everybody's like, this guy is a legend. Like, he should not be in an unmarked grave. And I'm like, I agree. He died on stage, and he was one of the most successful acts of his time. He was incredibly wealthy. If you read his grimoire, he was super wealthy. He had over 50 people on his payroll at the time of like the peak of his career. He would routinely, when he would come into town, it was like a parade was held every time he would come to Harlem. He would throw parties and contests for the children. He was super wealthy and super successful. Um, so for him to be buried in an unmarked grave seemed a little unusual, but not super, super unusual if you understand the history of hoodoo and hoodoo traditions. So it is traditional, it is a practice for hoodoo practitioners to request to be buried in unmarked graves so that their spirits are not bothered by people trying to petition them for miracles and magic in their death, right? So if you know of a powerful practitioner when they're alive, when they're dead, of course, you're going to go trying to get their graveyard dirt and do exactly what we just did, to petition them, to ask them for all kinds of things. So back in the day, and I guess maybe perhaps even to this day, hoodoo practitioners that had a reputation would request to be buried in unmarked graves so that they could rest in peace. And so people were not bothering them in the afterlife. So we suspect that maybe that is why somebody so wealthy would be buried in a prominent cemetery surrounded by a bunch of other wealthy, famous people, but not have a headstone. So you guys were like, no, he needs a headstone. And I felt like, yeah, he needs a headstone. But thank goodness for having teachers, right? They're usually a little bit wiser. So I mentioned this to Brother Moses, and I said, hey, somebody even like already, a couple people already donated. Like, people got really excited about the idea of fixing what we saw as a problem. And Brother Moses said, slow your roll, honey. Let's ask him before we start taking up donations. And I said, oh, yes, my bad, jumped the gun there. You're absolutely right. We should probably do that. So that's when he explained to me that he had already sent the dirt off to Doc Cosmic, and that we could have Doc Cosmic ask that question when he did his conjuration. So that's exactly what happened. When Doc Cosmic did his conjuration, he asked Black Herman several questions. First of all, he asked if the dirt was properly obtained, and Black Herman said yes, which made me feel really good because I was the one that obtained it. Was it properly paid for? Yes, the answer to that was yes. And then he asked him whether or not he wanted a headstone for his grave. And he said yes. But when asked whether or not we should make the location of the grave public so that people could go and, like, go to it or whatever, he said no, it shouldn't be made public. For those of you that want to go to his grave, you need to, oh, I just realized I am blowing nail dust all over the place because of this fan. Son of a bitch. Oh, it's too late now. I'm gonna have to clean it up anyway. So you guys are gonna have to do the research that we did, basically, and track him down. But what he did say was he doesn't want it to be as difficult as it was for me. He doesn't want people to have to, like, I basically had spirits guiding me. I had the spirit of a bird communicating to me, and going into graveyards, listening to spirit is something that I do. You know what I mean? For those of you who don't necessarily do that, you would probably be still in that damn cemetery looking for that grave. So he doesn't want it to be as difficult for other people. And so he is okay with having a headstone, but he doesn't want us to be like, this is where the headstone is. Like, we will put it there and then you will go find it. He also made very, very clear that he does not want any donations for the headstone. He was a very wealthy man. He was a very successful man, and he is not a fan of the idea of charity. He doesn't want to go fund me. He doesn't want people making donations. That's not what he's all about. Instead, he said he wants to work for the headstone. And what he means by that is he wants us to call on him for miracles and magic in our lives, just like you would petition a saint or a guide or the spirit of any other dead person to assist you. He wants us to do that with him. And by doing so, he will earn the gravestone, and he will earn the reputation as basically a folk saint. And shout out to Brother Moses. He was the first one to say this. He was like, we're basically creating a folk saint. We're elevating and venerating the spirit of someone to the point where they are like going to be petitioned the way a folk saint would be. And so that's pretty cool. So after Doc Cosmic asked Black Herman all of these questions and got these answers, the powder that he created was then sent back to Brother Moses, who then used that powder to consecrate some candles and some prayer cards. That right there is one of the prayer cards. I do have another candle, but it's in my, actually, no, it's right here. Let me show you the candle. Oh, I'll bring this too. So I have another. So this is the candle. We have it in white, black, and purple. Hey, June, welcome. White, black, and purple. This image here is one that Brother Moses created. It is a combination of two different images. One part of this image is from Black Herman's book, the first page of his grimoire. A picture of him like sitting on the world and on some books. But the outfit that he's wearing in that picture is different. Brother Moses took, we have a photo. There's some photos out there of him. And in one of the photos, he is in Prince Herman's hall, like a place where he used to work magic, basically, for people after, not illusion magic, hoodoo magic. And he would wear this outfit when he would do that. It was like capes with like crosses, and he would have a power stick. So he had like this ritual outfit that he would wear. So Brother Herman put the ritual outfit onto the figure, which is so cool. I mean, did I say Brother Herman? Brother Moses put the ritual outfit onto the figure. Okay. On the back is a prayer that Brother Moses created, and the candle is consecrated with the conjure powder made from the graveyard dirt, crossroad dirt, and the dirt of various other things. Okay, so that is the candle. The prayer cards have also been consecrated with the dirt. The dirt is underneath the lamination in 5 pinches. So there's dirt in there. So this is a great way to carry it with you, his spirit with you. And then I'll show you the grimoire too. So this is his grimoire. I have a hard copy because I blessed myself with a hard copy. The copies that we have in the shop are paperback copies. Okay. But that's his grimoire. So the grimoires, I tracked down and found and was able to source them for the shop. The candles and the prayer cards Brother Moses consecrated and made. And the prayer that's on the back of the candle is the same prayer that's on the prayer card. And he sent to me a case of each color of the candles and one set of like a dozen or 2 dozen prayer cards. And then I got a bunch of books. So at the shop, you can get the candles, you can get the prayer card, you can get the grimoire, or you can get them all together in a bundle. Okay. So that is what's going on up until, what was it, like May, I guess, at this point, to get the candles back and get everything in the shop and the dirt made and all of that good stuff. So since Black Herman does not want donations, he wants to be petitioned and basically earn the headstone. The candles and prayer cards and the grimoire allow you to do that. They allow you to conjure him, to call on him, to ask him for various things in your life. And 25% of the sales of all of the cards, candles, and books are going towards a proper headstone for him. So that's how we are doing it. So we are raising money for the headstone, but not in just like a freebie, charitable, oh, poor Black Herman doesn't have a proper headstone way. He basically told us that him not having a headstone was his choice. That's how he wanted it. And now, after 90 years of being at rest, he was buried in 1934. After 90 years of being at rest, he is now ready to be petitioned by folks to earn his position in hoodoo history, basically. And it's unbelievably amazing to be a part of it. Yeah, we've got updates from everybody that is working with Black Herman right now. So for those of you who are just coming in the room, if you want to hear not only my updates about working with Black Herman, but all of the other witches that are a part of this, and you can be a part of it too. Inside of the Coven community, we have a discussion feed and we have a subspace in the discussion feed dedicated just to Black Herman, where everybody has been sharing their stories and their updates and things like that. So in around May, I would say I finally got the candles in the shop, the prayer cards and books in the shop, and people started buying their bundles. I didn't bring home one for me yet because I wanted white. Spirit was telling me to get the white candles. Everybody wanted the black candles because duh, Black Herman. The Spirit was telling me I was supposed to get the white candles. So I was like, okay. I listen, right? So I said, all right, I will get the white candles and I will wait for those. And Brother Moses took the longest with the white candles for whatever reason. So we got the black ones, then we got the purple ones, and then it took a while for us to get the white ones. So I'm sitting here waiting for my bundle while everybody else is buying their candles and stuff. And then it occurred to me to start the discussion feed so we could keep track of everything. And then the stories started to come in. So Nuri, who is one of our shop witches, she petitioned him for a new apartment, got it within a couple of days. Terrence I don't think has even petitioned him yet, and he's already started coming in his dreams, which we're learning is very typical of Black Herman, which makes sense because half of the book is dedicated to dream interpretation. He has like a whole guide inside of the grimoire for how to interpret different symbols in your dreams. So I can tell from that dream interpretation was like one of his spiritual gifts and one of the things that he probably did a lot for people. And so now using our dreams to communicate with us is something very natural to him because everybody has been reporting. If there's one thing that's consistent amongst like everybody's stories is that he's been showing up in their dreams when they start to actually work with him, when they light their candle or when they start reading the grimoire or whatever, when they get serious about working with him. Because some people have bought like the candles and stuff, but haven't started working with him yet because they're kind of taking their time to figure out like how and why and all of that good stuff. Because we don't just do what the next witch is doing, right? We walk our own journeys. So I think that's beautiful that they want to be a part of the story of Black Herman, but that they are making sure that this fits into their own respective practices, which is what I want of every witch that that I'm connected with, certainly any witch that's learning from me. So some people have bought the bundle or bought a candle, bought a prayer card, but haven't really done anything with it just yet. But it seems like once you start to actually decide you're going to work with him showing up in your dreams seems to be a consistent occurrence so far. So that's kind of cool. Now for me, some of the things that he has done for me, I can't say just yet. Coven witches know what's up because I've spilled the beans on some of it in the coven, but even all of it, I haven't been able to tell all of it. So I've like dropped some hints and things like that, basically just letting people know that like he's working and that I'm going to have some announcements and things coming up soon. Yeah, the purple one was like an accident. Brother Moses was supposed to send me a case of black and a case of white. And by accident, he sent me a case of black and a case of purple. And I don't think that that was an accident at all, mostly because I don't believe in those things, but also because our patron saint is Santa Marta, who, by the way, her feast day is right now. Look at that. It's 12/12. Happy feast day, Santa Marta. July 29th is her feast day. So the purple is her color, and the shop walls are painted purple color in her honor. So him sending me purple candles didn't feel like an accident at all. Definitely, we only have 4 left. Okay, we have 3 black, 4 purple, and I think like 7 or 8 white, just because the white ones came last. Yes, he's very he's got the riz. He's very charming, very entertaining. I'm sure he was quite the talker in his lifetime. So I'm not surprised that he would be chatty now. So yeah, so people have been getting their bundles and reporting in the coven about like updates with him, questions about working with him, sharing their, comments, questions, concerns, all of that good stuff. So for me, I didn't do anything until those white candles came in. And the white candles didn't come in until like June, maybe early June. And so I brought my first white candle home. And I knew that I was going to need 2 because I was not going to petition him with the first candle. The first candle was to make introduction. I like to run any new spirit relationships by my current team. So I like to go to my ancestors or my guides or both to get their insight before moving forward. So I did that in this case. My first candle, I didn't ask for anything. I just lit it on my ancestor altar on a Monday morning during my ancestor check-in, and basically said, there's this guy that I want you all to meet because I feel very connected to him and I would like to work with him. I feel like I've been called to do so. I didn't go looking for him. This all kind of landed in my lap. So what do you guys think of this individual? And that night, I didn't go sleep in my bed. I slept on my couch, which is right over here. And my ancestor altar is over here. And I slept on my couch because I just wanted to be near it. And he manifested in my apartment. First, I saw him in my bowl of cereal. That's a side story. I don't even know how to explain that to you guys. So just trust me and just roll with it. I saw him in my bowl of cereal. Anyway, so I can go to sleep. And I feel a presence of a man standing by my ancestor altar. And I'm like, that's him. And I feel him like look over at the candle and look over at the altar. And I'm just sitting here watching this. And I'm just like, okay, all right. So I was a little bit nervous because I was afraid that when I went to sleep, that I would like see him, because at this point I'm just sensing this energy, and he's moving around in the living room. I feel him over here, and then he's over here by the books, and he's moving around. And I'm like, okay, I know, right? Haunted cereal. I was like, what the fuck? I literally saw his face in my cereal. I was also smoking. It was a whole deal. So I can't even describe it to you guys in a way that like would make any sense. So like, just trust me. I was eating some Teddy Grahams and a bowl of milk, and I saw him in there. Anyway, so and now I'm laying down, and he's moving around in this room, in the living room. And I'm like, okay, I can feel you. And I was nervous to go to sleep because I was concerned that he would startle me. Like I was, was it Cinnamon Toast Crunch? No, it wasn't. But you know what's crazy? That's my favorite cereal of all time. Favorite cereal of all time. No, I don't get cereal as much anymore because I actually had like a crazy cereal like addiction for most of my life, and I could easily down a box of cereal in the matter of a couple of days and like have bowls of cereal as my only meal like all day long. I also used to smoke cannabis quite excessively, so it was a lot of munchies and like eating bowls of cereal. And I had to cut that out. So now I get like really gross old lady like healthy cereals so that I don't eat them often. And so now I only have a bowl of cereal once every couple of months, honestly, like when I just like, I don't know, have a craving, or like I'm really lazy, I don't want to cook something. But I do kind of make a cereal for myself with Teddy Grahams. I have a little snack that I give myself on my cheat days, which is I will take a little bit of Teddy Grahams and I'll just pour milk over it and eat it like it's cereal. It's really kind of the same thing. You just have to eat it kind of fast so they don't get soggy. But yeah, it's essentially the same thing. So I'm eating my Teddy Graham cereal and I see his face in it and I'm like, what the hell? But so because he was in my cereal and then like kind of moving around the room, I was like, oh man, this thing is gonna it's gonna startle me. Like I was worried that I was gonna fall asleep and then I was gonna like open my eyes and I was gonna see him like sitting at the edge of my couch or something like that. And I was gonna be like, like, you know, and I just didn't want to have that like moment, even though I'm like expecting it. I was just like, oh my God, I just don't want to have that kind of moment. So I'm like fighting sleep and I'm like trying not to fall asleep. But eventually the sleep gets the better of me and I do fall asleep. And nothing really happens for most of my dreaming. I'm in a, you know, perfectly kind of normal dream state. Okay. So I'm like in a perfectly normal like dream state or whatever. And then I guess I get towards like the end of my dream, like right before I wake up. And right before I wake up, there he is in my dream, clear as day. And I'm looking at him and he looks down at me. He's rather much taller. And he looks down at me and he takes me by my shoulders, turns me around real fast, and pushes me forward. I go like, whoo, stumbling forward, and I go through some curtains and I'm on a stage. And there's people, it's a packed house, there's lights around the stage, and it's like an old school theater. And the very first thought I have in my mind is it's the Apollo. It's the Apollo. Now, he never performed at the Apollo, but there's an interesting story that I uncovered in my research about why that is. Because he would sell out Marcus Garvey's Liberty Hall, which sat, some reports said 4,000 people, and then other reports I saw said 6,000 people. But just like, you know, a fuck ton of people could fit in this hall. So I was wondering to myself, like, well, if he could sell out Liberty Hall, like, why was he not performing at the Apollo? And then I did some research, and it turns out because the Apollo wasn't the Apollo that we know today when he was alive. When the Apollo was built in like 1912 or something like that, it was a burlesque hall, and it was only for white people. It was a whites only theater, and it was a burlesque theater, burlesque theater. And when Fiorello H. LaGuardia, I think was the person who did this, but anyway, one of the governors of New York at that time banned burlesque, the Apollo had to shut down. And I don't know if it was called the Apollo. I don't even think it was called that. So it had to shut down. And then it wasn't for another 20 years that it would get reopened. And when it was reopened, like all of 7th Avenue was completely renovated. So all the streets around it were renovated. It was pushed back to widen 7th Avenue. When it was reopened, and I don't know why this is, I should do my research on the building itself, but for whatever reason, when it was reopened as a theater for performing, not for burlesque, that catered to the Black community. How it went from being an all white theater to a theater catering to the Black community during the 20s when segregation was still totally the name of the game, I don't know. I don't know if it was bought by a Black person or like how that even happened, but however it went down, it did. And I am very nervous about putting these on, realizing that I'm going to do my hair tomorrow. I'm like, this might not be the wisest idea. But anyway, when it reopened in 1934, the year that he died. So I don't think he ever got to see the new Apollo, and that's why he never performed there. But anyway, in my dream, the type of theater that it was like the Apollo, like an old school, proper, theater with like stage lights and the whole nine. And he pushes me out onto this stage, and then I just wake up. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Awesome. So that was the first occurrence. Then I decided that I was ready to petition him. That first candle burnt out. He made his introductions to my ancestors. They gave me the okay. He made his introductions to me, popped up in my dream, popped up in here, clear as day. So I was like, all right, I'm ready to actually ask him for something now. So I get my second candle. And with the second candle, I wanted to actually ask him for what I was hoping to ask him for. And I did. And within 24 hours, I was on the news. And what I was asking him for was related to being in the public eye, being on a stage. I want to be known for what I am doing. I want more people to know about me and to know about this community that we're growing and this mission that we're on. I want to see a world where witches are not looked at as something weird or something to be feared. I want every community to have a healer, a seer, a diviner, someone that can move energy in the direction that it needs to be in. And every community already does. There are witches absolutely everywhere, but many of us are not able to fully express ourselves as who we are because of all of the negative misconceptions about what we do and all of the fear mongering and all of the satanic panic thanks to the Christians and their nonsense. And so I want to see a world where that is not happening, and where witches are free to express themselves openly, and the people that need their services or want to learn from them, work from them, work with them, are able to do so. I want to see a world where there's a grocery store and a check cashing place and a post office and your local witches shop. And so that's why it's so important for me to be the Bronx Witch, and why it's important for the shop to be called BronxWitch HeadQuarters, because people have definitely said to me, like, why don't you just call your shop something else? Like, because it makes people nervous and it makes people like confused. And like when they see our sign, they're like, they don't want to come in. And like if you were just, if the name of your business was just, crystal shop or whatever, candle store, then you would have more business and more people would come in and they wouldn't be weirded out by you. And yeah, I know that. Duh. That's not the point. That is not the point. The point is to be Bronx Witch HeadQuarters. The point is for it to be normalized, for people to call themselves witches, for people to acknowledge that there are witches among you and the world is not going to end, for it to be normal for witches to have their own shops, their own stores, their own spaces, and be able to coexist right along with anybody else. If you can have your big ass church with your giant cross on the steeple in the middle of town, then why can I not have my witchy bookstore or tarot reading shop or Reiki office? The fuck? So no, I will not change the name. No, I will not make it less obvious. Yes, this will be Bronx Witch HeadQuarters, and you will get used to it. Period. So I want people to know that I'm here. I want people to know that we're here. And when people think about witches in New York, especially if they think about witches in the Bronx, I want them to think of me. And whether they like me or dislike me, whether they think I'm totally like the Antichrist or whatever, doesn't matter. I want them to know my name. Like it, dislike it, doesn't matter. I want them to know. I want everyone everywhere to know that if they want to know anything about witches and witchcraft and find actual practitioners and a community, you go to Bronx Witch. That's where the witches reside. That's where they're at. That's where they're doing their thing. And if you are somebody that is called to witchcraft and you want to learn and you want to find community and you want to find a place where you're accepted, that's where you go. Thank you. I don't think I can. I don't think I can change it. I don't think I really have a choice. I don't really know how to do anything but be me, you know? So I can't really imagine circumstances under which I could do something else. I could try and I just wouldn't do it as well. So I just kind of stick to this because I'm really fucking good at this. And I don't like to do stuff that I'm not good at because I like to be praised and complimented. So I don't think it would benefit me to try to be anything other than me, because then I would be mediocre at it. And that's just not my vibe. I'm a Leo. So if you're going to see me doing something, you're going to see me doing it well. You may not want me to be doing the thing, but I'm going to do it well. And it is not in my Leo nature to want to do things that I'm not doing well and have people like see that. No. So have no fear. I have no choice but to just show up like this. So I want people to know that. And yeah, I guess, people, you call that being famous or having notoriety or whatever terminology you want to use. But I want people to know that I am somebody that they can trust to inform them, connect them, etc. Inspire them, educate them. If you are interested in witchcraft, that I'm the person to talk to, and HQ is the place to go. So that's what I asked him for. And 24 hours later, I was on the news. And, or 24 hours later, I was getting messages from the news asking if we wanted to be featured. And then 48 hours later, I was on the news. And then 72 hours later was our Summer Solstice Tea and Tarot Festival out in the park. And I had like 6 different people come up to me and say, I saw you on the news last night, which is crazy because I didn't even really think that it would be a big deal because it was a super local news channel. It's Bronx 12, which is a very, very, very local news channel. And I don't watch cable. I don't watch the news anymore. YouTube is basically my TV. I got rid of my cable package like a year or two at least ago at this point. So I kind of forgot that like people really watch the news. I was like, oh, this like local news thing, like whatever, no big deal. Like I'm excited because like this is what I'm asking for, but like I wasn't like, it's not like the New York Times or CNN or something. So I was just like, okay, this is cool, nice. But what I was not really thinking about was the fact that this neighborhood is a much older neighborhood. It's a much older demographic in this neighborhood. And older people, they watch the news. Okay. They are all about that news. Okay. So they be on the news heavy. And to my surprise, I had all of these folks come up to me at the festival being like, I saw you on the news. We even had a little bit of like a altercation type situation where one of our vendors and somebody in the park kind of got into it because the vendor had a dog and it was like a whole to do or whatever. And I went over to talk to the people that the vendor had gotten into an argument with because it's my event, it's my responsibility to make sure that all is well. So I go over to talk to them and learn more about what happened, apologize on behalf of the vendor, and just make sure that everything is good. And I go to introduce myself to them, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Alysha Kravetz. I'm the owner of the bookstore." Da, 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 da. And the woman goes, "I know who you are. I saw you on the news last night. I walked by your shop a couple times. I saw you on the news last night." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay. Well, it's nice to meet you. Sorry about that. This is my event. Thank you so much." And I smoothed everything over, and all was good. But yeah, he works very quickly, is what I will say. Very quickly, because that all transpired really fast, and so now I have another ask of him, which is related to the first one, but there's kind of some more going on. So now I have my third candle, and this is going to be my third and final candle, or not final like forever, but for this process, this introduction, this bringing him into the forefront, this whole journey, this is going to be the one. And I have had in my mind a vision of a powder that I feel called to create for this last petition. And for the powder, I have slowly been collecting various dirts from different special places. And I finally got the last dirt. So I took out his book the other day. And I've been using it as a dream guide reference, using in his dream guide, but I haven't yet actually read the book. We're actually reading it together in the book club for the month of August. For those of you who are interested in reading his grimoire, we're going to be reading it together. So we're reading it together in the month of August, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I think I just wanted to get like a head start on it or something. I can't actually really recall why I decided to start reading it. But so I start reading it, and in the beginning where he's talking about his life story, he shares where he moved when he came to Harlem. And he says that he bought a beautiful home at 119 West 136th Street. So of course, me being me, I'm like, 119 West 136th Street, is it still there? So I go to get on Google to look and see if it was there. And there's a huge ash tree, which I think may be the same type of tree that was in the cemetery, right in front of the property, directly in front of it. So I can't see the house numbers. And I can see the numbers of 117. I can see 121. I can't see 119. I was like, son of a bitch, I'm going to have to go out there. So on the hottest day that we have had so far this summer, last week, Tuesday, when it was 97 degrees, I get on the train to Harlem to try to find this dead man's house. And sure enough, It is there. It is there, and it is beautiful, and it is tucked in because it's a different size from all of the other buildings on the street, which obviously have been renovated more recently. It is tucked back into the street, so it's on the line that was probably the original row of houses, but now these bigger buildings have been built around it. And it's there, and it's beautiful, and this ash tree is so impressive and amazing. And I'm just like, wow, this is so cool. I'm kind of lingering around a little bit, just kind of getting a lay of the land. I sit on the stoop that's next to the house, because that stoop didn't have a fence in front of it. This house has a fence in front of it. So, I'm like not trying to hop the fence or open up the fence. I'm just kind of like, peeking around, hanging around, taking pictures, taking video. I sit down on the stoop next to it and I pull out the book, and it just felt wrong. It was like, you have to go sit on the stoop of this house. And I'm like, fuck, bro. Like, am I really gonna just like open these people's fence and like walk in and sit on the stoop? Like, what if somebody's home? And I'm looking at the door pad and I can tell that there's like 2 apartments in the house now. And I'm like, all right, there's not a lot of people in there probably. Like maybe it's 2:00 in the middle of the afternoon. It's like on a Tuesday, maybe everybody's at work. It's very quiet on the block. Annoyingly, there was some lady in her car, like right in front of it with the car running, that would not leave. And I was like, bitch, leave so I can do some weird shit. Like, why you got to be posted up in front of these people's house right now? I knew I wanted to get dirt. And there's a tree, there's the big ash tree right in front. And I was going to take the dirt from the tree. But wouldn't you know, on the tree, there's a sign taped up that says pesticide warning. This tree's been sprayed with pesticides. So Spirit was like, you can't get dirt from the tree. You can't get dirt from the tree. You can't sit on the stoop next door. You need to get onto this property. You need to sit on that stoop. You need to get dirt from in there. And I was like, fuck yeah. How am I going to do this? All right. So I'm like, I'm doing it. Shit, here we go. I built up my courage and I open up the gate. I go inside. I close the gate behind me and I sit down on the stoop. I open up the book. I put up my phone, take a couple of pictures. And of course, what do I hear but the door unlocking behind me? And I'm like, shit. Door unlocks behind me and I hear some lady go, excuse me, can I help you? I'm like, man. So I get up and I'm like, hey, hi, I'm sorry. My name is Alysha Kravetz. I am doing a little bit of research. I had the book in my hands. I'm like, see, evidence? I'm doing some research and I'm wondering if you know about the history of this house. And she's like, at first she's like trying to get rid of me. And she's like, oh, no, but you can Google it, honey. It's online. You can look it up. And I was like, oh, no. She's like about to close the door. And I was like, no, actually, I asked because I do know the history of the house. I was wondering if you knew, because I was going to share with you. I don't know if you know that this is the former house of Black Herman. And she's like, no, come again, what? And so I start to tell her the story. And I'm like, Black Herman was the most famous African-American magician of the 20th century. He wrote a book, and in the book, he shared the address of his home, and this is the home. And he said it was a beautiful home, and it looked so well preserved, and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, now she's in. She's an older Black lady. And she's like, what did you say your name was again? And I was like, I'm Alysha Kravetz. I'm the owner of a bookstore in the Bronx. And her eyes light up. And she's like, you own a bookstore? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, I don't live here. My son lives here. He's out right now. And I'm here at doing something, whatever she was doing. She goes, but me and my son are huge bibliophiles. We love books. We didn't know there was a Black-owned bookstore in the Bronx. So I started explaining to her about the Lit Bar and HQ's history and how there's only two and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Do you have a card? And I'm like, yes, of course. I give her my card. And she's like, we have to come visit you. This is so cool. I'm going to tell my son. We're definitely going to come visit you. And I left out the part about, witches and stuff. I gave it to her. She looked at the sign. She saw what it said. We didn't have to get into that part. You decide if you feel okay with it at another time. But I sell books. That's what you need to know right now. And so we start talking and we're chatting about like the importance of preserving African American history and why it's so important that Black people tell Black stories so that they're not, changed and like all of this stuff. And we're just like yapping away. And I can just feel him smiling at us, just smiling at us. And at one point she goes, would you like some water? And of course, my normal reaction is to be like, oh, no, don't trouble yourself. No, thank you. I'm fine. I had brought a water bottle with me and I had a little bit of water left. But then, of course, I hear Spirit Girl, girl, you better take that water. So while she's talking, I'm hearing them talking to me, being like, take the water, ask her about the water. So we're kind of wrapping up the conversation. And I'm like, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a few more pictures and another couple videos of me on the stoop, if that's okay. And she's like, yeah, stay as long as you want. You're fine. Do what you need to do. It's all good. I'm like, okay, great. And I was like, oh, Elsie, actually, before you go, I will take that water. And she's like, okay, wait, and I'm like, I'll wait right here. I'm trying to come to your house, lady. Don't worry. And she's like, okay. And she goes in, she locks the door. She goes in, comes back down a few minutes later with an ice cold bottle of Poland Spring, praise God. And I was like, thank you so, so much. And Spirit said, you're not drinking this. Put it away. So I took one little sip. I was like, come on now. It's hot as hell. Let me take one little sip. And a little sip, put the rest in my bag. And then after she leaves, I sit down, I take a couple more pictures. And the whole time that she was talking, I was looking over like out of the corner of my eye to the left, because growing up out of the concrete was a plant. I didn't know what kind at first. I go to take a picture. I have like a plant ID app on my phone. Of course I do. I have a plant ID app on my phone. So I go to identify it and it's a princess tree, which I found to be kind of funny and ironic because Black Herman is named after his mentor, whose name was Prince Herman. I just thought that was interesting. So I said, okay, princess tree, Prince Herman. Interesting. The princess tree has a symbolism of protection and fertility and prosperity. I said, all right. So I go and I am looking around the princess tree and I realize that there's just a little bit of dirt. Like, I don't know. I don't think anyone planted this. I think what happened was over time, this little like square patch in the concrete got like filled with dirt, and this tree germinated there. Maybe a bird dropped some seeds or the wind blew it. I'm not entirely sure how, but this princess tree got germinated in this little patch of dirt, this big of dirt. This princess tree is growing out of. This princess tree is growing out of. So I was like, okay, this is where I got to get it from. And I go and scoop me up some dirt. I find the smallest little leaf on one of the branches and I clip that off. And we have that here. The leaf is in a cup over there with some other stuff, but this is the dirt. And there was some kind of like, there's a rock in here, but there was also some kind of like berry or something that broke apart. It's still breaking up in here. So some type of a berry or seed or something. I don't know, but it broke up in there. That was kind of cool. So that was the fifth dirt that I needed for this powder that I'm going to make to petition Black Herman for what I am calling my big ask. And yeah, that is the story of what has happened with him so far. Pretty cool, I would say. For me, anyway. And if you're into, like, dead people and shit, you might think it's cool too. So yeah, that is what has been going on with Black Herman. And I feel really honored to be a part of it. I will forever be grateful to Brother Moses, because Brother Moses lives out in Colorado. But here's the deal. He was just here earlier this year visiting his brother who lives in Queens. And he came by the shop and we took pictures and hung out and chatted for a while. And he gave me a beautiful sample of his tarot expressions. He just created this line of like resin based scents that are based on the tarot. And he gave me the Sun Card Tarot scent. Very wonderful. So he knows New York and he can easily get here. And he has a sibling who lives here who, as far as I know, is also a practitioner, or at the very least would probably be willing to like just help his brother out. So I found it very interesting that he would ask me rather than asking his brother or just coming out here to do it himself. He very much could have done that. And he decided to take the chance. We had never worked together before on anything. I'd like to think that as a student in his classes, I made an impression on him, at least that I am somebody that takes what they do seriously and is to be trusted. But other than that, he was really taking a chance on asking me to do this. And so I'm really grateful that he took that chance, because now I am a part of something amazing that I would not have. I mean, I guess maybe it would have come to me some other way, but, at least as far as I know, I would not have any involvement with this or have this relationship with Black Herman if it wasn't for Brother Moses trusting me enough to ask me to go get the dirt. So here we are. Here we are. And we have a couple people in the comments that have begun their journeys with Black Herman as well. They've been sharing in the chat, and I've been posting up their commentary. But for those of you who have begun your own relationships with him, where are you guys at with all of this? It's all very interesting. Do any of you intend, I have a question, do any of you intend to go to his gravesite or go to his house? I realized after I posted that post, I was like, ooh, am I going to have people gathering outside of this lady's house? I mean, it's not her house, it's her son. But I think it would be kind of funny. I hope they don't like mind. But you know how people like gather outside of like Marie Laveau's place and stuff, and it's become like a tourist attraction. I don't necessarily want to disturb the people who live there. But I guess that's also to be expected if you move into a historical home, that could happen. But yeah, if you want to, for those who are new in the room, if there are any new folks in the room, if you are interested in getting Black Herman's candles, prayer cards, or books, I put the link to the bundle in this description of this video. But you don't have to get the bundle. You can get all 3 items separately. If you click on the bundle, there are links in the description to all the separate items. So you don't have to get all 3, but getting all 3 is a great way to save a little bit. And then for those of you that want to keep in touch with this, everybody's personal stories of working with him, and perhaps share your own, we have a dedicated subspace in the discussion feed of the Coven that is all for Black Herman stories and updates. And so if you want to see what other people's experiences have been, that is a great place to do that. And stay tuned on updates about the headstone. Brother Moses is going to be kind of in charge of that. And we believe we need about $1,500 in order to get the type of headstone that we want. Nothing too crazy, but it is going to be like black granite because hello, Black Herman. But it's looking like about $1,500 is what it's going to cost. So 25% of the sales of all of the candles, prayer cards, and grimoires are going to the headstone effort. And personally, I would love to see that happen in the fall of this year. Being that it's the 90th year since his passing, I think it would be nice for that. And yeah. You know what? I just feel like I feel like if I put these nails on and then wash my hair, I would just be doing such a disservice. And I should give them the opportunity to last as long as I can. So I think I'm going to wait. I got my top coat. I'm going to let that dry. Tomorrow, I'm going to wash my hair. And then when I'm done with that, either tomorrow or Tuesday, I'm going to put on the nails for the start of my work week. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, because I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I just don't believe it. I do not believe that these stick on, press on nails, like there's no glue. It's just the sticky on the back. I know that Jim said that the nails have come a long way. The nail game has vastly improved, but I'm just not buying it. And I definitely don't think they can stand up to being soaked. Like I take super, super hot showers. And when I wash my hair, I take a really long time. So yeah, I'm going to save it. But did I show you guys the color? I've got my sizes picked out and everything. But we'll leave these here for tomorrow, the day after. But oh, they look super green. Okay, because they look really purple from where I am, but they're iridescent. And you know what's crazy? Oh my God, you know what is so crazy? I was gonna do purple and green with my gel polish. I picked purple and green. I had Bah Humbug, which is a dark, dark, dark purple, and Clover, which is like a very like leprechaun green. Santa Marta, she's like, "You gonna do your nails?" I now I feel like I'm probably gonna do them on. Am I gonna do them on Tuesday? Tomorrow is her feast day, but Tuesday is her like sacred day. I guess it kind of doesn't matter either one. Pretty? Do we like that? Right? I'm not buying it, Key. Ooh, that is so Martha. Love that. Those are going to be pretty. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. He's like, they last a long time, blah, 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 blah. They're amazing. But like, he's a white guy. He don't got locks. He's never washed locks with press-ons on. Can't trust that information, you know? And I'll be no I'll be annoyed with myself if I take the time to like put them on right and everything. And then the very next day I wash my hair just to have them all pop right off. No, I'm not doing that. We're gonna leave these here. I've got my sizes lined up for both hands. The nails are prepped, cuticles cleaned, nails clipped and filed, top coat on, and tomorrow or Tuesday, after I have done my hair, I am going to sit here and do the nails. That's what we're gonna do. All right. So yeah, that's my recap of the Black Herman story, y'all. Get into it. We are venerating our very own folk saint. A folk saint is coming to life before our very eyes. And you guys got to research him. Like I have been deep diving into research because the grimoire is obviously written from his perspective, you know. So he's going to tell the story the way he wants to tell it. And like I said, we think that most of it is a bit exaggerated. At one point, he fights a lion with his bare hands. I think that maybe, you know, there's some embellishment upon these stories. Okay. Um, and so I've been doing independent research on him. And it's just the stories are fascinating. First of all, he was arrested numerous times for fortune telling. Because it was illegal then. Some undercover detective lady came to him for fortune telling and like for spell work, basically to like, you know, keep her husband or whatever. He got everything wrong. She wasn't married. He said she was married and being cheated on and like all kinds of stuff. But she came under false pretenses. So I think that's what happens when you come with a lie. But in any event, she, you know, got him to tell her fortune, got him to like make a spell for her, and then was like, freeze, you're under arrest. So he was arrested numerous times, and him getting arrested only helped with his popularity. It only helped with his fame. It didn't hurt his business at all. It would only add fuel to the fire. Remember, this is a time before cell phones, before the internet. So people would just hear these stories, and the stories of his arrests, by the time they would make it, you know, to the next state, to the next town, would be even more fantastic. And he freed himself from this situation, and da 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 da, like they would become even more amazing. So him getting arrested would only add to it. One of the reports that I read said that he was actually incarcerated at Sing Sing at one point, which is where my best friend, who we call Prison Bay, is incarcerated. So that's crazy because I told him that story. He apparently was quite the philanderer. Okay. He was married, but cheated on his wife left and right in all the towns that he traveled in, and was eventually sued for divorce by her as a result. Um, just a fascinating man. Like I mentioned, he would like, they would roll out the red carpet when he would come into town because he employed so many people, and like regardless of what people would say about him being a charlatan or a fraud or whatever, so many people were loyal to him. There were all of these people that were entertained by his stage show, but then there were all of these people who he genuinely helped. You know, these are all Black people. Getting work, not easy. Getting decent pay, not easy then and now, but certainly at that time. And he gave them jobs. He gave them good wages. He took care of the neighborhood children. He entertained them whenever he was in town. He would throw these events and apple eating contests and pie giveaways, and he would do all of these great things for the community. So he really was like beloved. So the law may not have really liked him, but everybody else was down, and a fan. So yeah, his story is really fascinating. The more I learn, the more interesting it becomes. So yeah, what I really want to know now, I think, is because I've been reading some of the newspaper reports of his death. He died on stage in Louisville, Kentucky during a performance. One of his most famous acts was an act where he would pretend to be buried in a grave and then raised like several days later. So he was known as the man the grave could not hold, which is very ironic considering what we're doing with him now. But his phrase, he was known as the man that the grave could not hold. And his legend was that Black Herman would come back every 7 years. Because basically, as he would tour, it would take him like 7 years to get back around to the same cities. So it was known that Black Herman comes around every 7 years. Even though he died in Kentucky, he was brought back to New York to be buried. And what I want to find out now is why the Bronx? Why the Bronx? Because he was a legend in Harlem. I mean, he was a legend everywhere, but like he lived in Harlem. And there are all of these really big churches. He lived right down the street from Abyssinian Baptist Church, which is like one of the most world famous Black churches. Martin Luther King spoke there. Like, it's a huge church. I don't know if it has a cemetery, but I would imagine it did. But even if it didn't, there are other cemeteries to be considered. He could have been buried in Louisville. He could have been buried in Virginia, where he was from. Why was he buried in New York? And why was he buried in the Bronx? Is it just because the cemetery here is like one known for like wealthy and famous people? Is that it? Is it just because he had the money to be buried there? He got buried there. What I have learned so far is that the Bronx, where I am, the South Bronx, was basically like the suburbs for the wealthy Black people of Harlem. So Harlem was this bustling epicenter of Black culture and art during the Renaissance. All these big names were down there, all these theaters, all these performances, all these businesses. But for the wealthy Black people that wanted to get away from the city and wanted to live in a place that was more rural, at that time, the Bronx was still like the country, kind of. It was more of like a suburb type of a vibe. Suburbs didn't exist at this point, but like it was more... it was far more residential, far more rural, not quite as bustling and cosmopolitan as Harlem. So all of these really famous like Harlem people ended up like living in the Bronx and having their homes up here. So I wonder if that's it. I'm not sure. Good night, Takara. I really want to know like what his connection to the Bronx is that led him to be buried there. Back in the day, was it known for famous people, the Black church? Yeah, like I said, Martin Luther King spoke there. Like it was Abyssinian Baptist Church is like, it's huge. It was like the church that, like the church, the Harlem, there's a Black church on every block, but like it was a big one. It was like Emmanuel Baptist Church down in Charleston, that was Abyssinian. It was like the church that everybody knew about that was famous. So yeah, that's where the famous people would have gone. It's where the Beyoncés of the day would have attended church service. It's like what was it, Creflo Dollar in Atlanta? It's like Creflo Dollar's church in Atlanta. Like it was like where the celebrities would go to church. So why was he buried in the Bronx? I don't know if they have their own graveyard. I have to find out. But yeah, that's the last like piece of the puzzle that I want to try to figure out. What exactly is his connection to the Bronx? Is it just that the cemetery here is a very prominent one? Lots of famous people are buried in it. There are presidents buried in it. Celia Cruz is buried in it. Like I think Madam C.J. Walker is buried in it. Like all of these really famous people of all different backgrounds are buried there. So is it just because it was the biggest, most fancy, most famous, and that was his vibe, and he just wanted to be buried amongst all the other famous people? Or did he have some other connection to the Bronx that I don't know about? I want to find out. Yeah, the nail color is giving fluorite. I have a big piece of fluorite right here. Keep her by for my readings. Martha, all day. She's been walking with me my whole life. Took me until I was like 30 to figure that out. But she's been showing up all over the place. So anyway, fascinating stuff. Hoodoo history, pretty fascinating stuff, you guys. Honored to be a part of it. We'll continue to keep you posted. Definitely consider joining us over in the coven so you can hear everybody else's stories and not just mine. And like I said, if you are interested in obtaining the consecrated prayer cards, candles, or copies of his grimoire, all of that is available at my shop, BronxWitch HeadQuarters, BronxWitch.com. Just go to the shop and search for Black Herman. All of the goodies will pop up for you. So yeah, I think that's all. Blessed be. Have a good night.